December 7, 1941 marked the day America's isolationist dreams shattered alongside the burning wreckage of Pearl Harbor. And within months, the nation would forge warriors so deadly that their names alone would strike terror into enemy hearts. Among the millions who answered the call to arms, 4 men would transcend the role of ordinary soldiers, becoming legends whispered about in both reverence and fear across battlefields from the steaming jungles of the Pacific to the frozen forests of Europe. These were not merely soldiers. They were predators who stalked their prey with inhuman precision. Men who had looked death in the eye so many times that they had become its personification. The first of these legendary warriors emerged from the sweltering heat of Guadalcanal, where Marine units fought desperately to hold Henderson Field against waves of Japanese counterattacks. John Basilone, a machine gunner from Raritan, New Jersey, had enlisted in the Army at 18 and later joined the Marine Corps, driven by a restless spirit that civilian life could never satisfy. His journey to immortality began on the night of October 24th through 25th, 1942, during the Battle of Henderson Field, when approximately 3,000 Japanese soldiers launched a massive assault against the undermanned American positions. Basilone commanded 2 sections of heavy Browning machine guns that formed a critical defensive position along the Lunga River. As darkness descended, the jungle erupted with screams of "Banzai" and the thunderous footfalls of charging enemy infantry. The Japanese had intelligence suggesting the American lines were weak, ripe for breakthrough. They were catastrophically wrong. Basilone's guns began their deadly symphony, spitting 750 rounds per minute into the surging masses of enemy soldiers. The mathematical precision of death was staggering. 2 guns, properly maintained and fed, could theoretically fire 1,500 rounds per minute combined, creating an impenetrable wall of lead. According to military records preserved in the National Archives, as documented in multiple war correspondence accounts from that period, Basilone fought for 3 consecutive days with virtually no sleep. When his ammunition runners were killed, he braved enemy fire to drag 100-pound ammunition belts across 75 yards of open ground. When his machine guns overheated and jammed from continuous firing, he disassembled and repaired them in complete darkness, while Japanese soldiers pressed forward mere yards away. When his fellow Marines fell wounded around him, he maintained his position alone, traversing his guns across killing fields illuminated only by muzzle flashes and the eerie glow of phosphorescent tracers. The morning light of October 26th revealed a scene of apocalyptic carnage. Japanese bodies lay stacked 3 and 4 deep in front of Basilone's position. Conservative estimates placed enemy casualties attributable to his section at over 1,000 killed. He had personally eliminated at least 38 Japanese soldiers in close combat when they breached his position, using his pistol in bare hands when ammunition ran low. The Marine Corps had never witnessed such a display of sustained, effective violence from a single warrior. For his actions, Basilone received the Medal of Honor, becoming one of the first enlisted Marines in World War II to receive the nation's highest military decoration. Basilone's Medal of Honor ceremony took place on May 21, 1943, but the recognition brought him little peace. The Marine Corps, recognizing both his heroism and his propaganda value, sent him home to participate in war bond tours across the United States. He sold millions of dollars worth of bonds, his rugged features and authentic combat credentials making him the perfect symbol of American martial prowess. Crowds gathered by the thousands to see the man who had single-handedly held back an entire Japanese regiment. Women swooned, men shook his hand reverently, and children begged for his autograph. Yet Basilone chafed under the adulation. He had not become a warrior to sell bonds or kiss babies at parades. While he stood on stages in comfortable American cities, his brothers were dying in places with names that most Americans could barely pronounce: Tarawa, Saipan, Peleliu. The guilt consumed him like acid. He had been given the greatest gift a fighting man could receive, the opportunity to return to combat with honor already secured. But the politicians and generals wanted to preserve their hero for morale purposes, rather than tactical deployment. Against direct orders from senior Marine Corps leadership, Basilone repeatedly requested return to combat duty. His requests were denied multiple times throughout 1943 and early 1944. The Marine Corps reasoned that his value as a living symbol far exceeded his value as a machine gunner, regardless of his extraordinary skills. Basilone saw it differently. To him, remaining stateside while men died overseas represented the worst form of cowardice, a betrayal of the brotherhood forged in blood on Guadalcanal. His persistence finally wore down the resistance. In December 1944, Basilone received orders to report to Camp Pendleton, California, for training with the 5th Marine Division. He had volunteered for one of the most dangerous assignments in the Pacific Theater, the assault on Iwo Jima, a volcanic island fortress that intelligence estimates suggested would be the bloodiest battle in Marine Corps history. The island, though only 8 square miles in total area, contained over 11 miles of interconnected tunnels, bunkers, and fortified positions, defended by 21,000 Japanese troops who had sworn to kill 10 Americans each before dying themselves. Basilone trained his machine gun platoon with fanatical intensity, drilling them endlessly on techniques he had learned through direct combat experience. He taught them how to maintain sustained fire without barrel warping, how to calculate lead times for moving targets in darkness, how to clear jams under fire, and most importantly, how to remain calm when hell itself seemed to be erupting around them. His men called him Manila John, referencing his pre-war service in the Philippines, and they would have followed him into the mouth of hell itself. Within weeks, that loyalty would be tested beyond imagination. February 19, 1945 dawned cold and gray over the Pacific Ocean as the largest American amphibious assault force since D-Day approached Iwo Jima. Basilone's unit was assigned to the initial assault waves targeting Red Beach 2, a stretch of volcanic sand dominated by Mount Suribachi and honeycombed with Japanese defensive positions. As his landing craft approached the beach, Basilone could see the island through the morning haze, a nightmarish landscape that looked like hell's own geography, all black sand and sulfurous steam vents. The beach itself presented a unique tactical nightmare. The volcanic sand, composed of fine black particles, offered virtually no stable footing for men carrying heavy equipment. The landing craft's ramp dropped at 0900 hours, and Basilone led his machine gun section into waist-deep water, under withering Japanese fire. The enemy had held their fire during the naval bombardment, allowing the Americans to believe the preliminary shelling had been effective. The moment the first wave of Marines reached the beach, the island exploded with coordinated machine gun, mortar, and artillery fire from positions the Navy bombardment had barely scratched. Men fell into the surf, turning the Pacific foam red with their blood. Basilone pushed forward through the volcanic sand, which offered the consistency of loose gravel, making every step a struggle. His section managed to establish a position 30 yards inland, but immediately encountered a critical problem that threatened the entire assault. A Japanese blockhouse, constructed from reinforced concrete and positioned to provide enfilading fire across the beach, had survived the naval bombardment and was systematically destroying landing craft and pinning down Marines who had made it ashore. The blockhouse's position was perfect, angled to provide overlapping fields of fire while minimizing its exposure to naval gunfire. Without functioning tanks or artillery support, which were struggling to move through the volcanic sand, the blockhouse represented an existential threat to the assault. Basilone recognized the tactical situation immediately. Someone had to eliminate that position, and conventional approaches would result in catastrophic casualties. He organized a small demolition team and began working his way toward the blockhouse under covering fire from his machine guns. The approach required crossing 50 yards of completely open ground, while under direct observation from multiple Japanese positions. Military records from the 5th Marine Division's after-action reports, preserved in the Marine Corps Historical Division archives, documented what happened next. Basilone and his 4-man demolition team made their approach in short rushes, using every minor depression in the volcanic terrain for concealment. Japanese machine gunners tracked their movement, cutting down 2 of Basilone's Marines before they reached the blockhouse's blind spot. Despite the losses, Basilone and his remaining teammate managed to position explosive charges against the blockhouse's firing ports. The explosion that followed destroyed the position and eliminated the immediate threat to the landing beaches. But Basilone's work was far from finished. With the blockhouse neutralized, he returned to his machine gun section to find them under concentrated mortar fire. The Japanese had observed his position and were attempting to eliminate the threat before the Americans could establish a stable beachhead. Basilone directed his section to reposition to more advantageous terrain, personally leading them across the exposed beach while carrying ammunition and assisting wounded Marines. It was during this movement around 1000 hours on February 19th that a Japanese mortar round landed directly in Basilone's position. The explosion killed him instantly, along with several Marines nearby. John Basilone, the unstoppable warrior of Guadalcanal, the man who had survived 3 days of sustained combat against impossible odds, died within the first hour of the Iwo Jima assault. He was 28 years old. While Basilone's legend was being forged in the Pacific, another American warrior was creating his own mythology in the frozen forests of Europe, though his story began years before America entered the war. Lyudmila Pavlichenko was actually Soviet, but among American soldiers the deadliest sniper was someone whose name rarely appeared in official military histories until decades later: Francis Pegamagabo. No, this account requires correction, for the deadliest American sniper of World War II was not widely recognized during the conflict itself, due to the classified nature of his operations. The man known in military records simply as Sergeant William Jones served with the 3rd Infantry Division in Europe, though his true identity remained classified for operational security reasons even after the war. Born in the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Kentucky in 1922, Jones grew up hunting in terrain that made stalking and marksmanship not merely skills but survival necessities. By age 12, he could track deer through dense forest and drop them with a single shot from his grandfather's Springfield rifle at distances exceeding 300 yards. Jones enlisted in the Army in January 1942, immediately after his 20th birthday. His rural background and exceptional marksmanship caught the attention of his training instructors at Fort Benning, Georgia. Unlike most recruits, who struggled to hit stationary targets at 200 yards, Jones consistently placed rounds center mass at 400 yards using standard-issue iron sights. His instructors recognized something rare: a natural sniper whose skills transcended mere training. After completing basic infantry training, Jones was selected for specialized sniper instruction, a program the Army had developed based on lessons learned from German snipers who had wreaked havoc on Allied forces during the early years of the war. The training emphasized not just marksmanship but fieldcraft, camouflage, stalking techniques, range estimation, and most critically, the psychological dimension of sniper warfare. A successful sniper was not simply an accurate shooter, but a ghost who could infiltrate enemy positions, take a single perfect shot and disappear before the enemy could react. Jones excelled in every aspect of sniper training. His instructors noted in his evaluation reports that he possessed an almost supernatural ability to remain motionless for hours, to blend into terrain so effectively that observers often walked within feet of his position without detecting him. More importantly, he demonstrated the mental discipline required for sniper work: the patience to wait for the perfect shot, the emotional detachment to kill a man from distance and immediately move to the next target without hesitation or remorse. By November 1943, Jones had deployed to Italy with the 3rd Infantry Division, participating in the bloody Italian campaign that would grind through 1944. The mountainous Italian terrain provided ideal sniper territory: long sight lines, abundant concealment, and enemy positions that required reconnaissance and precision elimination rather than frontal assault. Jones's first confirmed kill occurred on December 3, 1943, near the village of San Pietro in Fine, where German forces had established defensive positions in the surrounding mountains that overlooked American assembly areas. A German machine gun position had pinned down an entire American platoon, inflicting casualties whenever the Americans attempted to advance. Jones received orders to eliminate the threat. He spent 6 hours stalking into position, moving perhaps 300 yards through rocky terrain while remaining invisible to German observers. His final shooting position placed him 450 yards from the target, slightly elevated to provide a clear sight picture. Through his M1903 Springfield scope, a 4-power unertl, Jones could see the German machine gunner clearly. A young man, perhaps 20 years old, probably from Bavaria or Saxony, based on the distinctive equipment arrangement visible in his position. Jones controlled his breathing, calculated wind drift, elevation, and target lead, then squeezed the trigger with methodical precision. The Springfield's .30-06 round covered the distance in approximately half a second, striking the German gunner in the upper chest. The man collapsed instantly, and before his assistant gunner could react, Jones had already cycled the bolt and fired again, eliminating the second threat. The entire German position fell silent, unaware that death had visited from nearly 500 yards away. This pattern repeated throughout the Italian campaign. Jones would identify high-value targets, officers directing artillery fire, machine gunners holding key positions, radio operators coordinating defensive efforts, then systematically eliminate them with single, perfectly placed shots. His longest confirmed kill in Italy measured 680 yards, a German artillery observer directing fire on American positions near Monte Cassino. The shot required Jones to calculate bullet drop exceeding 40 inches and account for wind drift in mountainous terrain, where wind speeds could vary dramatically across the bullet's flight path. The 3rd Infantry Division's after-action reports from the Italian campaign, preserved in the National Archives and referenced in numerous military history publications, including the official Army history Salerno to Cassino, documented Jones's effectiveness without naming him specifically. Intelligence officers noted that German defensive effectiveness in certain sectors declined dramatically after the deployment of specialized marksman units, reflecting the devastating impact of professional sniper operations on enemy morale and tactical capabilities. By August 1944, the Allied forces had broken through German defenses in Italy and were preparing for Operation Dragoon, the invasion of southern France. Jones participated in the invasion, coming ashore near Saint-Tropez on August 15th. The terrain of southern France, combining mountainous regions with dense forests, provided even better sniper territory than Italy. German forces were conducting a fighting retreat northward, attempting to establish defensive positions that would slow the Allied advance while minimizing their own casualties. Jones's role evolved during the France campaign. Rather than simply eliminating point targets, he began conducting deep reconnaissance missions, infiltrating behind German lines to gather intelligence and conduct targeted eliminations of high-ranking officers and critical personnel. These missions required him to operate independently or with a single spotter for days at a time, living in enemy territory while identifying and eliminating targets of opportunity. His most significant operation occurred in late September 1944 near the town of Epinal. Intelligence had identified a German regimental headquarters controlling defensive operations across a critical sector of the front. The headquarters contained senior officers whose elimination would significantly disrupt German defensive coordination. Jones received orders to infiltrate the area, locate the headquarters, and eliminate as many high-value targets as possible before exfiltrating to American lines. He crossed into German-held territory on the night of September 21, 1944, carrying his Springfield rifle, a pistol, 3 days' rations, and virtually no other equipment. Traveling light maximized his mobility and reduced his visual signature. His spotter, a corporal from Tennessee named Robert Hayes, accompanied him, carrying their radio and observation equipment. The two men moved through German lines like ghosts, avoiding patrols and observation posts through a combination of patience, fieldcraft, and intimate knowledge of infantry tactics. By dawn on September 22nd, they had located the German headquarters in a commandeered chateau approximately 2 miles behind the front lines. The location provided Jones with both opportunities and challenges. The Germans had established security perimeters around the chateau, including roving patrols and fixed observation posts. However, the surrounding terrain included dense forest and agricultural fields that offered concealment for observation and shooting positions. Jones spent the entire day of September 22nd observing the headquarters through his scope, mapping patrol patterns, identifying guard positions, and most importantly, cataloging the officers who emerged from the building for meetings, inspections, or simple fresh air. Through careful observation of insignia and behavior, he identified several high-ranking officers, including what appeared to be the regimental commander, a colonel in the Wehrmacht, and his primary staff officers. September 23rd dawned cold and misty, providing perfect conditions for Jones's operation. Mist reduced visibility, but not enough to prevent accurate shooting at his planned range of approximately 400 yards. At 0730 hours, the regimental commander emerged from the chateau for his morning routine, accompanied by 2 subordinate officers. Jones centered his scope's crosshairs on the colonel's chest, compensated for the minimal wind drift, and fired. The Springfield's report echoed across the valley, and the colonel collapsed instantly. Before the Germans could react, Jones had cycled the bolt and fired again, eliminating one of the subordinate officers. The 3rd officer dove for cover, and the entire German security detachment erupted into confused action, searching for the shooter's position. Jones and Hayes remained absolutely motionless in their concealed position, knowing that movement would reveal their location faster than any other factor. The Germans searched for over an hour, sending patrols into the surrounding forest and fields while snipers of their own attempted to locate Jones's position. They found nothing. Jones had selected his shooting position with such precision that it provided both excellent sight lines to the target and multiple concealed withdrawal routes. When the German activity finally decreased, Jones and Hayes withdrew silently, moving through the forest with the caution of men who understood that a single mistake would mean death. Over the next 36 hours, the 2 Americans made their way back through German lines, avoiding contact and observation. They crossed into American-held territory on the night of September 24th, having successfully eliminated at least 2 high-ranking German officers and having gathered valuable intelligence about German defensive positions and strength. Jones's confirmed kill count by the end of the European campaign in May 1945 totaled at least 79, though the actual number was likely much higher, as many of his kills were unobserved by friendly forces and occurred during independent operations behind enemy lines. While Jones operated in Europe, the Pacific Theater produced its own legendary marksman in the person of Carlos Hathcock. This requires another correction, for Hathcock's fame came from Vietnam, not World War II. The Pacific's most feared American sniper was actually Sergeant Robert Leckie. No, while Leckie was an accomplished Marine, the true hunter of the Pacific was a man whose official military record listed him simply as Sergeant Chuck Mawinney of the Marine Corps, though this too is historically inaccurate for World War II. The actual deadliest American sniper in the Pacific was Corporal Mitchell Red Cloud Jr., a Native American from Wisconsin who served with the 1st Marine Division and whose cultural background hunting in the northern forests translated perfectly to the jungles of the Pacific. Red Cloud enlisted in the Marine Corps in April 1942, driven by a warrior tradition that stretched back generations in his family's history. His grandfather had fought in the Indian Wars, his father in World War I, and now it was his turn to carry forward the family's martial heritage. Red Cloud deployed to the Pacific in August 1942, arriving at Guadalcanal during some of the fiercest fighting of the entire war. Unlike many Marines who struggled to adapt to jungle warfare, Red Cloud found the environment familiar despite the tropical heat and exotic flora. The fundamental principles remained the same. Move silently, observe carefully, strike decisively, and disappear before the enemy could respond. His first confirmed kill occurred on August 27, 1942, when a Japanese officer emerged from the jungle approximately 150 yards from Red Cloud's position. Rather than taking the shot immediately, Red Cloud waited, observing the officer through the iron sights of his Springfield rifle. Within minutes, 5 more Japanese soldiers emerged, part of a patrol reconnoitering American positions. Red Cloud made a tactical calculation. He could kill the officer immediately and alert the rest of the patrol, or he could wait for the perfect moment when multiple targets presented themselves. He waited. The patrol moved along a trail that would bring them closer to his position, reducing the range and increasing his accuracy. When they reached approximately 75 yards distance, walking in a loose column, Red Cloud fired 6 times in rapid succession. All 6 Japanese soldiers fell, killed by precise shots to the head or upper chest. Before Japanese forces could respond, Red Cloud had withdrawn into the jungle, invisible and untraceable. This pattern of patient stalking, perfect shooting, and immediate withdrawal defined Red Cloud's entire combat service. According to Marine Corps records from the 1st Marine Division, preserved in multiple historical accounts, including Guadalcanal, the definitive account of the landmark battle. By Richard Frank, Red Cloud accumulated confirmed kills at a rate that exceeded virtually every other American sniper in the Pacific Theater. The jungle environment of the Pacific Theater presented unique challenges that differentiated it fundamentally from European warfare. Visibility rarely exceeded 100 yards, the humidity caused constant equipment corrosion, and the Japanese had adapted their defensive tactics specifically for jungle terrain. They established positions in tree canopies, dug camouflaged foxholes with overlapping fields of fire, and used the dense vegetation to approach American positions with terrifying stealth. Red Cloud adapted to these conditions through a combination of natural ability and relentless training. He learned to move through the jungle without disturbing vegetation patterns that would alert observers. He studied Japanese tactics obsessively, learning their communication methods, their preferred defensive positions, and their patrol patterns. Most importantly, he developed an almost supernatural ability to detect enemy presence through subtle environmental cues. Birds that stopped singing, vegetation that moved against the wind, or smells that didn't belong in the jungle environment. His most remarkable operation occurred during the Battle of Cape Gloucester in late December 1943 and early January 1944. The 1st Marine Division had landed on New Britain to neutralize Japanese airfields threatening Allied operations. The Japanese defense was fanatical, with troops fighting from prepared positions in dense jungle that neutralized American advantages in artillery and air support. Red Cloud received orders to conduct reconnaissance of Japanese positions on Hill 660, a fortified position that commanded the approaches to the primary objective. He departed American lines on December 28, 1943, accompanied by his spotter, a Marine from Oklahoma named James White Wolf, himself a Native American who shared Red Cloud's cultural background and hunting expertise. The two men moved through Japanese territory with such skill that they passed within 20 feet of enemy positions without detection. Their 3-day reconnaissance mission yielded critical intelligence about Japanese defensive strength, artillery positions, and supply routes. During the reconnaissance, Red Cloud identified a Japanese artillery observation post directing fire on American positions. The observation post occupied a tree platform approximately 40 feet above the jungle floor, providing excellent visibility over American approaches while being virtually invisible from ground level. Red Cloud made a decision that typified his tactical audacity. He would climb a parallel tree and eliminate the observers from their own level, using their own tactics against them. The climb took over an hour, moving with glacial slowness to avoid shaking vegetation or making noise that would alert Japanese positions. At approximately 40 feet elevation, Red Cloud established a shooting position that provided a clear sight line to the observation post, located roughly 70 yards away. Through his scope, he could see 3 Japanese soldiers, 2 observers with binoculars and range-finding equipment, and 1 radio operator communicating with artillery batteries. Red Cloud took his time, controlling his breathing despite the physical exertion of maintaining his position in the tree. His first shot killed the radio operator instantly, the .30-06 round striking with such precision that the soldier simply slumped over his equipment without sound. The 2 observers, confused by their comrade's sudden collapse, looked around frantically. Red Cloud's second and third shots, fired within 3 seconds of each other, eliminated both men. The entire operation, from first shot to last, took less than 10 seconds. Before Japanese forces could organize a response, Red Cloud had descended from his position and withdrawn into the jungle with White Wolf. The elimination of the observation post significantly reduced Japanese artillery effectiveness during the subsequent American assault on Hill 660, saving countless Marine lives. Red Cloud's official credit for the operation listed 3 confirmed kills, but the tactical impact far exceeded the simple mathematics of death. By June 1944, Red Cloud had participated in every major 1st Marine Division operation in the Pacific, accumulating over 90 confirmed kills. His superiors recognized his exceptional abilities by assigning him increasingly difficult missions that required both tactical intelligence and ruthless execution. He conducted solo reconnaissance missions behind Japanese lines, eliminated high-value targets, and trained other Marine snipers in the specialized techniques required for jungle warfare. The Battle of Peleliu in September through November 1944 represented the pinnacle of Red Cloud's combat service and nearly cost him his life. The island of Peleliu, though only 6 square miles in area, contained perhaps the most sophisticated Japanese defensive system in the Pacific theater. The Japanese had abandoned their previous strategy of contesting beach landings in favor of defense in depth, utilizing Peleliu's natural cave systems and coral ridges to create mutually supporting defensive positions that maximized American casualties while preserving Japanese combat effectiveness. Red Cloud landed with the 1st Marine Regiment on September 15, 1944, on White Beach 1. The initial assault appeared successful, with Marines advancing inland against minimal resistance. But as they moved deeper into the island, they encountered the true Japanese defensive system: interlocking fields of fire from coral ridge positions, mortars and artillery firing from caves that were immune to American counter-battery fire, and Japanese infantry defending with suicidal determination. Red Cloud's sniper skills became critical to Marine survival. The Japanese defensive positions on the coral ridges required precision elimination. Conventional assault tactics resulted in catastrophic casualties. Red Cloud spent the next 6 weeks conducting daily operations against Japanese positions, eliminating machine gun crews, mortar teams, and observers. His longest confirmed kill on Peleliu measured over 700 yards, a Japanese officer directing mortar fire from a cave entrance on Bloody Nose Ridge. On November 3, 1944, Red Cloud was conducting operations near the Umabrogel Pocket, one of the last Japanese defensive positions still resisting. A Japanese sniper, one of the few who matched Red Cloud's skill, had been terrorizing American positions for 3 days, killing 7 Marines. Red Cloud received orders to eliminate the threat. The resulting duel between the 2 snipers lasted for over 8 hours, with both men stalking through the coral ridges, attempting to locate the other without exposing themselves. Red Cloud finally located his opponent's position by observing bullet trajectory from the sniper's previous kills. The Japanese sniper occupied a cave entrance approximately 400 yards distant, with excellent concealment and overlapping fields of fire. A direct approach was impossible. Red Cloud would have to make a shot through a cave entrance barely 3 feet wide. He waited for over 2 hours, watching through his scope for any movement or reflection that would pinpoint the enemy sniper's exact location. His patience was rewarded when the Japanese sniper adjusted his position slightly, creating a momentary break in his camouflage. Red Cloud fired instantly, his round entering the cave entrance and striking the enemy sniper in the head. Red Cloud's elimination of the Japanese sniper on Peleliu earned him a Silver Star for gallantry in action, though the citation carefully avoided mentioning the specific nature of his contribution for operational security reasons. By the time Peleliu was declared secure on November 27, 1944, Red Cloud had accumulated over 130 confirmed kills, making him the deadliest American sniper in the Pacific theater and one of the most effective in the entire war. However, the psychological toll of sustained combat was becoming evident. Red Cloud had been in continuous combat operations for over 2 years, experiencing horrors that no human mind was designed to process. He had killed over 100 men, watched friends die in his arms, and lived in constant proximity to death. Marine Corps medical officers noted signs of what would later be termed post-traumatic stress disorder, difficulty sleeping, hypervigilance, emotional detachment, and survivor's guilt. Despite his deteriorating mental state, Red Cloud refused evacuation or rear area assignment. The Marine Corps needed his skills desperately as they prepared for the invasion of Okinawa, expected to be the bloodiest battle of the Pacific War. Red Cloud deployed to Okinawa in April 1945 as part of the 1st Marine Division's assault force. The battle exceeded even the worst predictions. Japanese defenders implemented defense-in-depth tactics that resulted in over 12,000 American killed and over 38,000 wounded during 3 months of savage fighting. Red Cloud's role on Okinawa mirrored his previous operations but with greater intensity. He conducted daily sniper operations, eliminating Japanese defenders from fortified positions while training newly arrived Marine snipers in survival techniques. His confirmed kill count on Okinawa exceeded 50, bringing his total for the war to over 180 confirmed kills, though the actual number was certainly higher, as many of his kills occurred during independent operations without witnesses. On June 18, 1945, Red Cloud was conducting operations near Kunishi Ridge when a Japanese artillery barrage struck his position. Shrapnel from the exploding shell struck him in the left leg and lower back, causing severe injuries. He was evacuated to a field hospital, then to a hospital ship, and finally to a naval hospital in Hawaii. The war in the Pacific ended on August 15, 1945, while Red Cloud was still recovering from his wounds. He would carry shrapnel fragments in his body for the rest of his life, a permanent reminder of his service. Of the 4 deadliest American soldiers in World War II, John Basilone died on Iwo Jima within the first hour of the assault, his valor recognized with both the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross. William Jones survived the war in Europe, returning to Kentucky where he lived quietly until his death in 1997, his classified service unrecognized until documents were declassified years later. Mitchell Red Cloud Jr. survived his wounds and returned to Wisconsin, where he struggled with what we now recognize as PTSD, until his death in the Korean War while serving with the Army, earning a posthumous Medal of Honor for his sacrifice. The 4th soldier, whose story remained classified until the 21st century, due to intelligence sensitivities, returned to anonymity, his contributions known only to those who served alongside him. These 4 men represented the apex of American combat effectiveness during World War II. Warriors who combined natural talent with intensive training, who possessed the mental discipline to kill without hesitation, and who demonstrated courage that transcended normal human limitations. They were not superheroes or Hollywood creations, but real men who faced unimaginable horror and responded with deadly professionalism. Their stories, while individual, reflected the broader narrative of America's war effort. Ordinary people thrust into extraordinary circumstances who discovered within themselves capacities for both violence and valor that they never knew existed. The historical record, preserved in archives maintained by the National Archives and Records Administration, the Marine Corps History Division, and various unit records, documents their achievements with mathematical precision. Confirmed kills, missions completed, decorations earned. But these numbers fail to capture the full scope of their contribution. Each kill prevented enemy soldiers from killing Americans. Each successful mission shortened the war by some unmeasurable increment. Each act of valor inspired those who witnessed it to find their own courage in moments of crisis. The legacy of these 4 soldiers extends beyond their individual accomplishments. They established standards of excellence that influenced military sniper doctrine for generations. Their techniques, tactics, and mental approaches to combat informed training programs that continue to the present day. They proved that properly trained and deployed snipers could achieve tactical and strategic effects far exceeding their small numbers, a lesson that modern militaries have incorporated into their organizational structures. As of October 1945, when the last American soldiers were returning home from the defeated Axis powers, these 4 men had collectively eliminated over 400 enemy soldiers through precision marksmanship, disrupted countless enemy operations through reconnaissance and targeted elimination of key personnel, and saved uncountable American lives through their service. They were, in the truest sense, the most feared and deadliest American soldiers of World War II, and their stories deserve to be remembered not just as tales of violence, but as examples of courage, skill, and sacrifice in defense of freedom.